To the first meeting of 2014. Happy New Year to everyone. We're going to start the meeting with the signing of the warrant.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Next is the approval of December 16th meeting minutes.
Motion, Bill.
Seconded.
I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. I've been notified by the town administrator that either everyone who owns a license or has a license, licensed properties, has come in and either made restitution or set up a payment plan. So our first scheduled appointments with relation to the public hearings is not necessary. Is that accurate?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. So that's good to hear. I'm not skipping citizen participation. I just wanted to give everybody a sense of where the agenda was going, because there were quite a few public hearing license delinquent tax items on the agenda this evening. As a matter of fact, there are 9 of those. So I'm going to go to citizen participation right now. Is there anybody who would like to speak who is not otherwise scheduled? This is the opportunity. Unless there's a public hearing, unless you're here for a public hearing, for which we'll open it up to citizen participation again. And that first public hearing we're going to have is related to the community development program. So folks can speak if that's what they're here for. Melissa? You know, before I get to you, I did want to say one thing. We got information in our correspondence about the 2013 audit, the compliance check and audit. And I did want to bring that up first, not as an item of correspondence, but since you were here, it's fortunate that we can bring that up. The Community Development of Housing and Community Development sent myself a letter and to this board stating that the Community Development Block Program Monitoring Report for 2012 is complete, and that the program has been certified and deemed compliant. I know that's not necessarily easy work, keeping up with the administrative requirements of grants, but it's important as town departments receive grants that they meet the requirements of the granting agency. And this is a complete review of, well, Melissa, why don't I let you talk about what the state does, because you were in attendance and you were the one that participated in that.
Yes.
Okay.
The state does come out and monitor all the financial activity from the inception to the completion of the entire grant fund. So they go through the entire process with us. They monitor every fund that comes in and comes out of the office. We have to keep extensive detail on warrants and schedules and any invoices that come into the office. It's payroll reports for all our contractors and subcontractors, and the budget of the infrastructure projects as well. And they did come out a few weeks ago. We completed our audit again annually, and we were compliant with no findings.
All right, outstanding, and that's
Thank
what the
you.
report indicates, and that's not necessarily easy, and I appreciate the hard work that you put into that
Thank
to
you.
make that happen.
Appreciate it.
I wanted to call that out this evening. Why don't I let you go ahead and begin and
Thank you.
let everybody know what this is about. This is a public hearing.
Yes.
And I appreciate it if folks could sign that are in attendance, not just those that are speaking, but those that are in attendance, so that we could record those attendees.
Tonight's hearing is the second of 3 meetings for updating the community development strategy. The first meeting was held on December 16th, and the purpose of that meeting was to begin the discussion of the CDS. Tonight's hearing is for your board to hear the community input and to receive input from town officials or any residents. Since our last meeting, the 2014 Community Development Strategy was distributed to any town boards, commissions, and groups involved with the needs of the low to moderate income residents. On December 4th, I held a public forum for residents to voice any comments or suggestions that they may have. And there were approximately 30 people in attendance, and I received a few comments that I'd like to share with your board. The first comment that was received at the forum was a request to continue with our housing rehabilitation program. The second request was improvements to Water Street. And the third request at the forum was a social service request, and that was someone's concern to see if there's any programs out there to help assist the elderly in snow removal. I have contacted Sue Clark, the director of the senior center, and her and I are looking and researching any options that may be available to the elderly in that sense.
Okay.
I've also received 2 correspondences from our last meeting, and the first letter was received from Highway Surveyor Scott Crisafulli, and his request was to make improvements to Water Street. And I also received a letter from a business owner on Water Street asking to consider to complete improvements up on the Water Street neighborhood of town. I received 2 phone calls from property owners on Water Street requesting repairs and improvements as well. And I did receive an email from a resident of Milford. She had many suggestions and improvements ideas for our Main Street neighborhood. Town administrator, myself, town planner, and Sue Clark have met with her. We did discuss any options and ideas that she did have for our Main Street, which we all thought were fantastic ideas, and we look forward to working with any group or an organization that could be formed for our Main Street improvements. And our next meeting will be held on the 27th, and at that meeting, I would have to ask your board to approve our community development strategy and to approve the 2014 grant application.
Okay. And I also wanted to comment, and I'll read from the minutes, since this is a continuum of meetings. At the last meeting, for those who either didn't see the meeting or haven't heard about it through media, there was also feedback from this board to provide feedback to the community development strategy, and specifically some of the suggestions that were made by this board, and I'll go through the minutes. Mr. DeBartolome's requested that we obtain clarification on several of the goals' objectives, updating those as necessary, making sure that it's as current as possible. Continue to revitalize and enhance downtown Milford, establishing a concept going forward as to the improvements that will be made. Continue to work on open space and recreation. Continue to work with the Industrial Development Commission on a plan to increase commercial and industrial use. Mr. Murray suggested that we look into placing the former Consigli property acquired on Dilla Street under a conservation restriction. Mr. Duncan's provided some feedback to the board on how to go about doing that, along with some of the information that was provided by council in the past. And I specifically asked that we pursue a design for upgrading downtown, suggesting that Community Development Office work with the Town Planner and Industrial Development Commission to determine a more concrete strategy for resources and funding. Further suggested we look at how other communities obtain their funding, develop their strategy, and look for ways to encourage input from citizens, other town boards, and certainly I didn't intend to leave out from the merchants themselves in the downtown area. It takes a coordination from a lot of boards, as you know. It wouldn't have been successful without the help of a lot of boards and community members, and that was the feedback that we had provided to you in the last meeting, but I'll let you go ahead now.
In response to Dino's comments on the ongoing and the changes, we did receive those, and the packets had been prepared for tonight's meeting, so they will definitely be incorporated for the next meeting on the 27th, and you'll see all those changes take place. On the Dilla Street property, it is on the correspondence for this evening. I know Town Council and Town Administrator are handling the conservation, the deed on that as well. And then on the Main Street, I have looked into funding sources that are available for revitalization or any redevelopment on Main Street. As of this moment, there is nothing that is available, but that does not mean that Milford does not qualify or there won't be anything coming up. I have placed a few calls, and I am reaching out to a few other organizations as well to obtain if there's any funding available.
Yeah, and it's important to remind folks that the strategy can be developed in a lot of different places. It can come from IDC, it can come from merchants, it can come from citizen participation. That your primary role is to go out and take that strategy, go out and look for sources of funding, specifically the community development, housing community development, and then administer that program and keep it whole, keep it compliant as you have in the past and as Sue has in the past, while exercising and trying to achieve that strategy. So I just want to remind people, the burden is not completely on you. And to that end, I've asked, and I wanted to let the board members know that I've asked Rick Villani to work with the Industrial Development Commission, trying to find new ways to make it more relevant. Currently, this board receives very little feedback or input from the Industrial Development Commission. And whether it's creating a commercial development zone that includes the downtown, and whether we expand our efforts to change the charter or modify what exactly the IDC does. The request I made to specifically the town administrator was to look at the IDC charter, meet with its members, and meet specifically with Larry as well, find out which parts are working, which parts might work, what things aren't working, and take out the parts that aren't working and modify it. If we have to go to town meeting to modify that charter, that's what we ought to be doing. And so I think what we're looking for is the IDC to step up, and we're looking for ways in which to include merchants within that process and community members within that process. There's a great deal of feedback as we went through casino discussions and whatnot, what could be done about some of the issues and blight, some of the downtown areas that's the face of Milford. And so I think that's partly reflected in some of the feedback you receive from this board as well, and the feedback we're receiving from community members. So I just wanted to let the board know that I've asked Rick to do that. He'll be coming back in a couple of weeks to talk about what it is we can do with the IDC and how the IDC might be able to assist you in that process along with community members and merchants.
We are on the agenda on the 17th, Larry?
16th.
16th with the
Next
IDC.
Okay, good.
So that we'll be able to discuss any options and then have an update for you at the next meeting as well.
Okay, good, good. Thank you. So you provided the feedback that you've received.
Yes.
This is a public hearing, so I think it's just as important to hear from community members. Is there anybody here in attendance that would like to talk to the efforts of the Community Development Office that Melissa is here for? And is there any feedback that community members would like to provide during this hearing? Yes, if you could just step forward and, well, Larry, can you bump over just one seat and we'll put them right in the middle? I want to make sure everybody's on microphone so you can be heard at home. You could just make sure you introduce yourself for the record.
Yeah, I'm Peter Scandoni.
Hey, Peter.
From Milford. Hi. Just a few comments. I'm not sure what Melissa has. She may have most of this, but like you've said, Bill, the main streets are thoroughfare, and it projects the image, I think, of our town, anyone driving through our town. There's some comments I have. I noted down a few things that I know some of the islands, traffic islands, could be made a little neater. Perhaps some weeding would help, maybe some flowers. I know when you're entering the town, 109 and 16, that intersection, be nice if that looked a little more attractive. Fortune Boulevard and Cedar Street. When you come off of 495, entering Cedar Street, it's facing you, the welcome to Milford, but half of it is nice, and sometimes, and the other half, I'm not sure what happens there. One thing that I know bothers some of us is the bike riding on the sidewalks. I happened to be leaving Pizza Chef one day, almost got picked off. I mean, I tried talking to the person, maybe yelling at him, but he didn't speak English. Perhaps signs would cover that base. Please walk your bikes on the sidewalk, something to that effect, so we're not profiling in any respect. That's another concern. I know when we go to other bike trails, there are signs like that around Bristol and the East Bay Providence bike trail. when you go through those towns, at the intersections, there are signs, walk your bikes. The bike trail is beautiful we have in town. That's appreciated by so many of us. There's, other towns have welcoming signs. They're oval with attractive colors. When you drive into a town, I think that would help the appearance of our town. And I can go on and on, but if we could accomplish that,
Please,
that'd be
no,
great.
no, no, if there's other things on your list, please do
Yeah,
add, because, you know, there's a great many assets the town of Milford has. Leveraging those assets and making the town more welcoming, creating an environment where commercial businesses succeed on Main Street, and helping to market that may be one of the approaches. Signage is certainly, you're right.
Yep.
There are a lot of other communities that welcome their guests differently and in better ways than Milford does.
Yep.
So I appreciate that feedback.
One other thing I'd like to add, during the casino campaign, I knocked on a lot of doors, spoke with a lot of people and businesses, and they're all of the same opinion and concerns that I'm voicing now.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you very
Thank
much,
you.
Peter.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to address the board, talk to the board, participate in the public hearing? Okay, not hearing anyone. We'll move on. You know, there's another item of correspondence we received recently that I think is an opportunity. We don't always have to look for our sources of funding through community development. We can do that through town resources. There are, you know, we just noticed that the current biomeasure TIF agreement has $53,000 balance. And so, you know, one of the things I'd like to suggest to this board is that we seed these efforts and developing a strategy, benchmarking what other communities are doing with funds that, in essence, the taxpayers have already paid for. When we create TIF agreements, we as residents and other businesses subsidize those agreements in the hopes that those will pan out, create greater employment opportunities and revenue for the town. With $53,000 in a balance, what I'm going to ask is that the board members consider putting that biomeasure TIF agreement towards development of the strategy and benchmarking with other communities. I look at, certainly Franklin has done a great deal within their community with their Main Street. And that's just an example locally, but there are many others that we can benchmark to see where they've had successes, what types of things that have they brought to the town in trying to create maybe art centers, studios, cafes, and different things that invigorate and create pedestrian traffic and give the commercial merchants opportunity to be successful. Because one of the things we're criticized for in Milford is the high rate at which we tax businesses and commercial businesses. It's a tough economy, and you know, maybe there's something we can do in providing that biomeasure fund to help seed this and not just always look at the state. We have our own grant opportunities locally with funds that are available. So, having said that, do you have everything you need this evening? You've heard from at least one resident, you've heard from this board, you've heard from others through correspondence, and you've met with others. There are other people that I think we need to reach out towards, and specifically some of the merchants, some of whom have approached me. Ronnie Pagnini, longtime Milford, big family, has made a great deal of investment in commercial businesses. He's talked to me about some of his suggestions, so I'd ask that you reach out and contact Ron Pagnini as one of the examples. But there are others. And I would say go visit folks within your building, 89 Main Street, and others, and say, what is it, along with suggestions such as Mr. Scandoni's, that may be beneficial? What do you see in other communities that we may be able to pick up and improve our Main Street?
Absolutely. The CDBG application that's due in February must meet a national objective, and that's either to eliminate slum and blight or to benefit low to moderate income residents. So the Main Street would not qualify for our February application, but we'd be more than happy to move forward with this in the future.
All right. And the next thing I'm looking for when Rick and the IDC report out is what strategies they're looking at. I think we receive one correspondence annually from the IDC as a board talking about our our setting of our tax rate. And that's frankly the only correspondence that I can remember off the top of my head that we receive. So I'd like to see them as greater participants and more relevant in this process. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll go to the board members to see what
Thanks.
comments they have.
Yeah, Melissa, I just want to reiterate what Bill said about the audit, the compliance. That's always, I remember when Sue went through it, very tedious, very comprehensive, and they really looked for things. And we've always had a very good record, and you continue in that vein, and that means that, you're very organized, you're detail-oriented, and that you're very precise, so good job
Thank
on
you.
that. I agree as far as the letter from Scott, the highway surveyor, regarding Water Street and also the merchant on Water Street. I think I'd spoken to you before. I met with about 10 residents a few months back regarding Bancroft Park. Now, I know we've done some seating, I think we put in some sidewalks, but could that be included, like if we wanted to like put a little playground in for the kids?
The
Good.
playgrounds do not get included.
Okay,
Like I said, it needs to meet a national objective, which is
Alright.
either to eliminate slum and blight or to benefit low to moderate income residents. But we can look under other funding
Sure, okay.
available.
and as Bill said, and also Mr. Scandoni, I mean, we have monies.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so if something is really important and we feel it's, we just go to the finance committee, ask for money, go to town meeting, and we'll support it.
Yeah.
Whether it be 53,000 or 100,000. I mean, there's issues that have to be taken care of, and we can do that, so we don't have to wait for grants. Because when you get monies from the federal government, state government, then you have to do it their way. And so,
It's become very competitive,
Right.
and
So if
they're federal grants, state mandated.
if we all feel that something should be done, we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's all, we just need a motion, and we can do it at a future meeting. And the other thing, I think we're having the new Chamber of Commerce lady in tonight, Ms. Bohanson, something like that. And,
Close, very good. Came close.
ma'am, I was afraid it'd be you. Okay. Well, listen, with my name, you have nothing to worry about, believe me. But, she has a very impressive background. And I think that one of the things, we've had some, I think, very good people, from Saul Kraft, Joan Redden, to Barry Feingold, and now Miss Bohanson. One of the things that might be good is a better working relationship with the Chamber of Commerce as far as Main Street. What people tell me all the time, I never forget, we had a meeting, 1982, in the old library. It was pouring like crazy, 6 o'clock in the morning. Ronnie Pagnini, a lot of the people aren't here anymore. And we talked about Main Street. And then we hired, I think, the town planner. We got going on certain items. We did parking, storefronts, parking garage, a possibility, sidewalks, trees, signage, drainage. So we've done a lot of things. But it just seems that
There's more to do.
if you don't make it a high priority all the time, and then there are some things we can't do. People say to us all the time, why can't a nice restaurant move to Main Street? Now, we have Johnny Jack's, we have 89, we have Turtle Tavern. I guess there's a Brazilian place on Fayette Street that's doing very well, and I believe there's a Chinese place now, they sell.
Several, yeah.
They do very well. So, I mean, those are the types of things, and once we get into it, ma'am, if you can help us with that, I mean, how do you attract, at one time, we had some bad bar rooms, so the goal was to get rid of them. We had meetings till 4 o'clock in the morning with people with masks over their heads. And we did it, and it was very difficult, so we cleaned it up. And then we had the program that, all the monies that Sue brought in, but still, I just think it's some of the symptoms go away, but the problems are still there. So I think if we can try to bring in restaurants, try to bring in stores, those are the things that Milford people want to see. Now, it may be difficult to do because everybody goes to the malls and all that, but those are the things, and plus, if we can, keep it clean, keep it nice, aesthetically pleasing, we can put some signs up, we can, the ladies who take care of the islands all the time, they put up flowers, I mean, they're out there in the wintertime, summertime, and, they do a great job, but, that's the type of thing that maybe some ideas that you can bring to Melissa and us, man, but, how do we, And then the landlords, they have priorities too, so how do we work with the landlords to maybe try to bring in what people of Milford would like to see so that, it would be a nice Main Street. And as far as going back to, 30 years ago, that'll never happen again. So I think if we have banks, if it's clean, if it's trees, if the weeds are cut, Mr. Solazzi, I used to drive him crazy. Lou, could you please call someone to have those weeds cut down on Main Street? May not be a big thing, but I
No,
think
it
when
is a
some
big thing.
people drive by, as far as the bikes, Peter brought up the bikes, I've spoken to the chief probably 10 times in the past. The former chief and the present chief. Sometimes you can put up all the signs. You put up signs, no speeding, no, whatever the case may be, but people abuse that. But we just have to, keep going at it and try to do one big thing that we can. But if we can bring in some businesses, small businesses, restaurants, I think that would go a long way. So welcome to Milford, ma'am.
We're going to be speaking to you in a moment.
Thanks,
So
Mr.
we can
Chairman.
Follow up on that.
If I can, just to address one of the topics that you had just mentioned on the weeds on Main Street, we have the weeds sprayed once a year on Main Street. There is enough funding left from the Downtown Partnership for one more year of funding for the spraying of the weeds. I have spoken to Scott at the Highway Department. He is looking forward to increasing his budget to take that over. So in the future, he'll be in charge of all the weeds along Main Street.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Brian?
Yeah. I think we need to keep in focus what you're doing here, and what you can feasibly do and do within the guidelines that you have, because there's all kinds of stuff being tossed at you, but it's really beyond the realm of the grant application. And, just to backtrack a little bit, we've talked about the certification on the 2012 grant, but I think no one's really identified what that work was that was done. And as I look at it, the grant funds were awarded to the town for the Church Street, Bancroft Ave, Draper Park roadway improvement project, that whole area behind Kyle Bright and the church. Yeah, and that aspect, that part of the project is now complete?
The project is 100% complete, yes.
Yeah, so you have to operate within the parameters of the grant and also the target areas of the town.
Exactly.
Which you show us on the map here. We've got the yellow zone and the
Target
pink
area A
zone.
and B, yes.
Yeah, but they're both, just one got adopted later than the other. They're
The
both,
B did, yes.
right, so they're both, it's all subject to the same, it's not that something's eligible for the pink area and something's eligible for the
No,
yellow
they're
area.
just two separate target
Yeah,
areas.
two areas, so that's really, what you can do, and as I understand it, you're seeking for this year's application to complete the Water Street project.
My recommendation, based on the feedback I have received,
Yeah.
would be to move forward with the Water Street Improvement Project.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm certainly supportive of that. I was supportive when they came forward a couple of years ago, and I know you partnered with the Highway Department and, did a lot of that work, and it's made a nice improvement up to the top part by 140, coupled with the light from the state. So now you're just gonna go down more on Water Street?
Yes, to Lee Street, and then, again, Scott at the Highway Department would like to pick up and come further down to tie in our two previous projects.
Yeah. So, I think that's wonderful. Now, when we talk about all of this other, work that we might want to get done on Main Street, I think the thing that people need to realize, the landowners, the merchants at Main Street, they're not a homogeneous group, They have different interests, different concerns, and what one owner may want, another may not. And I know that, Sue, you ran into, many types of situations, because for several years, you put forward the Fall Festival. And, that was a nice event, I thought. It went on, I think you ended at 07, 08, somewhere around there.
I'm gonna say maybe 2008 was the last one we did.
And
2009.
And that was a great, family, community event. And to me, I thought it was a no-brainer. Everyone would be supportive of it. Everyone thought it was a great idea, but that wasn't the case. And, you know, for various reasons, you know, that type of event has not occurred anymore. So the challenges that you have, you know, people talk about a Main Street like it's a single, you know, structure, single person. It's not. It's various individuals, all privately owned. So there's very limited in what a town can dictate. I do know that your office has been creative in terms of resources. You know, we did use the biomeasure money, I remember, quite a few years ago to upgrade the parking lot across from Sacred Heart, because as we talked, that elbow, that's sort of your greeting, your entrance way into the town. And, you know, we did use some biomeasure money for that, but you also were able to employ the, through the sheriff's office, the prisoners. And they would come out and do cleanup and that type of stuff. I remember at one point that trash barrels were on Main Street, and that had to be taken off because of the difficulty, the maintenance, you know, the highway department. So, you know, there's been a lot of things that have happened over the years through Main Street. I think targeting a revitalization is a great idea. But, you know, as I look at this room, okay, and everyone's talking about Main Street, I think I'm the only guy that actually does business on Main Street. You know? So, I mean, if it's gonna happen, you know, you've gotta reach out to the people who are there. And I think what they're gonna tell you, you know, beyond, you know, the flowers and all of that, unless you get some meaningful parking in that area, you're not gonna get the kinds of places that, you know, we're looking to do. And, you know, the town has had opportunities in the past with targeted pieces of real estate, and for whatever reason, has chosen not to do that. So if you want to take some meaningful steps to help these people, that's the first place to start. Because without, you know, parking, without access, people aren't going to go to the stores, to the restaurants. You know, all of the other stuff sounds great. You know, we'll have the nice flowers and put up a sign about the bikes and all of that, but it's really not going to be substantial. It's really nibbling around the edges. So I think that your office could certainly spearhead, you know, a movement, you know, to try to bring the Main Street landowners together. And I would certainly encourage you to do that, because you're not going to have any sort of successful strategy unless you get someone involved that's actually there on Main Street. And see what can be done. In terms of resources, there's no question. I mean, the biomeasure money is there. I mean, I wrote that into the agreement. But, you know, that's not going to take you too far, you know. The town certainly has financial resources, and I think if a solid strategic plan gets put forth, the town will fund it. So I think your office, you know, can continue to work with the beautification efforts that, you know, that you've done. And we should also mention, you know, the Greenleaf Garden Club. I think those women do a wonderful job, both in Draper Park and all of the other areas with the plantings. You know, those kinds of things, you know, can continue to happen. Certainly reach out to the police chief in terms of the bicycles. It's an enforcement issue, plain and simple. And, you know, when we have the cop walking the beat, that doesn't happen. You know, so you know, a greater police presence can certainly go towards those kinds of events. But I think your office, I think, at least maybe on an informal basis, can try to spearhead a Main Street organization so that you can try to get the landowners and the merchants back together again, you know, to see what types of steps they think are real, are substantive, and are going to make a difference. So that's really not part of your grant application. I don't know if it's part of your job description, you know, and it's sort of unfair to be, you know, kind of dropping all of this stuff on you. But, you know, I think your office can certainly play a lead role in that. And of course, we're here, and you know, you have the disposal of all the town resources to do that. But I had many conversations with you, certainly more with Sue over the years, about all of the Main Street issues. And, you know, I think you've picked up the baton well, and you're moving forward. But, you know, I want to give Sue a lot of credit, too, because you headed up this office for how many years, Sue?
Too many. Over 20.
I mean, you did a great job. I mean, you really did. You know, for all the criticisms I, you know, want to hear from people about Main Street, you know, go to some other towns. And I'm not talking about Wellesley or Newburyport or something like that. You know, go to some real mixed-use communities And, that's the diversity that we deal with. And I think given those constraints, given those realities, I think you did a great job there, So, that's what I see as kind of the agenda and the big picture. I wish you luck doing that. Obviously, I support the grant application for Water Street.
Okay.
And then if there's anything else that you want to try to target for Main Street, count me in.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, to some of the comments that the board members have had, I'm not sure of any comprehensive or strategic effort for parking beyond what, Sue, you brought forward in the community development planning. I know I've not refused parking opportunities, nor have I seen anything brought forward to town meeting. So, maybe that's the type of thing, that's what I'd like to hear. And, we can speculate on a lot of things as a result of anecdotal information, or we can get the information from the merchants themselves. And again, I look to Industrial Development Commission as a vital role in that, because that's what they do. That's their charter. But along with that, I just want to make sure we reinforce the fact that, the state and federal grants aren't the only sources of funding, that we'll continue to fund and look to support efforts to make Milford a better place to live, and the quality of life is improving, and we want to see that happens.
Bill, can I just say something
Please.
else? And as Bill and Brian have said, Melissa, back in '82, Martha White was the town planner. She organized the group, the merchants, the real estate people on Main Street, Central Street. We had that meeting at the library. And so maybe something like that could be done, like, next month or so, invite everybody. And, and hopefully people will show up. The first time we scheduled a meeting, I think we invited like 80 people, 20 people showed up. Then we tried it again, and half the people showed up. So I think if you get the people at the meeting, that's the first step. And then talk about the issues, and, there are things that everybody has to try to do. At one time, there were people on Main Street that wouldn't even shovel the snow. They own businesses, and they expect the town to do everything. And, they won't even be willing to shovel a little bit to have someone, a pedestrian, go into their place of business. So you gotta get people involved.
Needs to be a group effort.
And not start that way. Talk about some issues, come up with an agenda with Larry, maybe the new Chamber of Commerce executive, and schedule that meeting. It could be here, it could be any place. Have some coffee and some pastry, and talk about the issues, talk about what's on people's minds, and what they could do to maybe help out.
Okay.
And then along with have it be a town effort and a business effort, merchant effort, because whatever we do is gonna benefit everyone. But you have to get everybody together, and people have to help out also.
Okay.
So that's what I would recommend strongly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Oh,
good
let me just-
discussion,
let me just-
please.
One other comment. And when you meet with the Main Street people, don't be afraid to bring up the concept of mixed use, I mean, the concept of more apartments on Main Street was brought forward in the past. There was a very limited bylaw that I think Larry had put together, what was that, 2-3 years ago? Yeah. Yeah, and it only talked about, buildings, I think, from the third floor up. It was only gonna result in, a small amount of apartments. But, the concept behind that, as you know, is, if you have the living arrangement there, you bring in a built-in clientele. So someone's living there on Main Street, they might need to, go grab some groceries or something, or they might wanna go to a restaurant. They don't have to worry about the parking.
Right.
So, that, can be a big part of a plan going forward. And, I don't think it was actually voted on at the last town meeting. I think it was passed over.
Right.
But, that can be part of the plan. That can be part of the concept. Let's look at it. Maybe it wasn't examined thoroughly. Maybe people have had a chance to think a little bit more about it, But, and I hate to use these trite expressions, but sometimes you gotta think outside the box. I mean, we just gotta, try to really go beyond what the general thinking is.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Great.
You got definitely more than you bargained for when you came here tonight, huh?
That's okay.
There's a lot of information, but,
We'll get through it.
we've just had some pretty serious discussion on, what what types of revenue might be possible with certain types of development. We've had an awful lot, we've been introspective as a community to talk about what may and may not benefit this community. We now know moving forward, a casino is not part of our future. So what we're talking about is how to challenge individuals who have been a part of this to look towards the solutions. Some of the discussions were not always positive as it related to casino and people's concerns, and we want to, take that and use your office maybe to spearhead a little bit of that energy.
Okay.
So that would be helpful, and I appreciate it.
Thank you. And our last and final meeting will be on the 27th, at which point I will ask your board to adopt the draft CDS and approve the 2014 application. Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks, Melissa.
Next, we have the Central Street resale transfer of a license. Yolanda Rivera here?
Yes,
You Yolanda?
I am.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Just for the benefit of everyone here, you're seeking for a transfer of an existing license to open a secondhand antique dealer's business on Central Street, 2 Central Street.
Yes,
You're the applicant,
yes,
and you also reside in the town of Milford.
I do.
For the benefit of everyone, we do go out to the department heads and ask for feedback.
Okay,
The building commissioner has indicated this is an allowable use, and that building and restrooms are not handicapped accessible, but it still is an allowable use. Town planner has indicated it's okay and no change of the use, the existing use. Tax collector has indicated there's no outstanding taxes. Town treasurer indicates there's no outstanding liens. Fire department and police department have no issues or concerns.
yep.
So I just wanted to introduce it with the information we've already been provided to help you along. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you intend to do and what you're hoping to do at that place of business with this application?
Okay, well, prior to me buying it, it's been a consignment store for the last 4 years. So basically how the business functions is we have individuals in the Metro West area that bring in clothing, resellable items that are in good, like new condition that we can sell. They make a profit on it, and so does the store. The profit really goes into paying the rent
Sure.
and the consigners and things like that. It's men, women's, children's clothing right now. I just applied for, with the Department of Revenue, Mass, sales use tax, because we're trying to get additional things like for the home, housewares, really different things that we kind of see our customers asking about.
Okay.
And I don't know, the future, I would like to open a bigger store and maybe make it more of a co-op
Okay.
and get additional businesses involved. I liked hearing what I was hearing about really improving Milford. I've lived here for the last 5 years now, and when I moved here, one of the things that attracted me was Main Street. There was potential here. There was a lot of work to be done, but there's potential. So as a business owner, I just want to see kind of the best of Milford, and as somebody that lives here, has family here, a nephew in school, we use the library all the time. There's so much good in Milford, just like to see some more. So one of my steps is being a business owner in town.
Okay, and thank you. I hope that you participate in any of the forums or merchant associations that we'd like to spearhead and
Sure.
move forward. I'll go to the members of the board,
No,
see if
I'm
they
all
have any
set, Bill.
questions or comments.
Good luck, man.
Okay, thank you.
Brian?
So, is this a business that you're buying from this Janet Robinson?
Jane Robertson, yes.
Oh, okay, so it's not a relocation of a physical premises?
No.
You're going into the existing premises and you're just purchasing it from another individual?
Yep,
Good luck.
thank you.
All right. So with that, I'll take a motion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Seconded.
All right, I also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Good luck with your business.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now we have Chamber of Commerce and introduction of the newest CEO.
And they all left. Hope that wasn't me.
No. I think they were here on one topic. So I just want, for the benefit of everyone, when you, to get the correct pronunciation of your name. So if you could
It's
help me.
Siobhan Bonson.
Bonson, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
Siobhan,
Welcome,
that's
Siobhan.
Very nice.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
You're very welcome.
I've been on the job 2.5 days,
Okay?
and it's been very interesting coming down 495 in this weather we've had lately. I live in West Boylston, and I am also a selectman.
Okay.
I was just elected this past June. I've also been elected to school committee, so
I already have worries now that you said that, but that's all right.
it'll all be good, I promise.
I'm just kidding.
So I have run for office before. I was chairman of our school committee, and I was part of the team for 7 years in that role as well.
Okay.
I've got over 20 years of banking experience. I have not worked for a chamber before, so I have a habit of thinking outside the box. And I really do hope to have a great working relationship with the town and members. I introduced myself to your planning person.
Yes.
And Sue
Sue Clark.
Yes.
from Senior
Yeah.
Center.
Yes.
And I'm going to connect with her as well to see if we can do some things. I have not met Melissa yet, but I will be down maybe in another week or so. It's a nice walk. I like Main Street. I understand the concerns on the parking. I thought that was a fantastic thought process. I really do hope that we can do some good things together, and things as in if a new person comes in, I'm hoping that the town can say, hey, go see somebody at the chamber, here's some information. I really want to unite the group. I don't know how much has been done in the past. It is something on the agenda that I want to work on with all of the towns that we don't just service Milford. As you know, it's a Milford area, and there are 10 towns. So I do hope to work a lot with every town and really get to know officials, who's in the town hall. And going forward, I think we're going to be very successful. I'm looking forward to it. I think the banking career will help me. And I think I also had owned my own business for 5 years in West Boylston, and I had another location in Worcester. So I can totally identify with the small business owner and what's involved in running a business.
Okay, we wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself. We wanted to welcome you.
Thank you.
And, with 2 days under your belt.
2.5.
We won't ask for anything in terms of your needs. We want you to let you get your feet wet.
Thank you.
Introduce yourself to, obviously, the various department heads, police chief, fire chief, and see what the needs are, and get accustomed to your own membership and board of directors.
Right.
But, the one message I wanted to come out, and when I asked Rick to set up this meeting, and invite you, is that we wanted you to leave understanding that we're welcoming you here this evening, and
That's
wish you
great.
a great deal of success.
I think it's together, I think we will all be successful, and especially the town, because the town business and the towns uniting will bring success to everybody.
Sure, we know when businesses are successful, that communities are generally successful as well, and so
Right.
we appreciate for the membership you have. Hopefully that membership will grow.
We're working on that hope too. That's
Okay.
our big goal for this year,
Good.
for 2014, is to really get out there and talk to people, talk to the merchants, and talk to the community as well, to see, like you said, what kind of businesses are you looking for? What can we do to help bring in people?
And you
Totally.
have other communities with, I would classify them or characterize it as more successful main streets and small businesses than some that we may have here and within your area. And that's some of the ones that I'd like to benchmark that, they're not necessarily the Newtons or Wellesleys, but most
Right.
certainly when we look at Franklin and some of the other surrounding communities, they've done a great deal to move in business and revitalize their main streets. So, but with that said, I'll go to the members of the board.
Yeah, no, thanks, Bill. No, nice meeting you, and
Thank you.
that was a nice write-up, and when I saw first female selectman, and that's pretty good. So good luck with that.
Thank you.
No, I think, like I said, I think we've had some very wonderful people in your position, and going back, over 30 years, and I think as a new person came in, the position has evolved. I think your main responsibility first is to, take care of the businesses that belong to the chamber, make sure they're stable, make sure they prosper, and try to get new people on board. Some people, like everything else, aren't members of the chamber, and why not?
Right,
Maybe you
and
can go
that's-
after those people.
Yeah, and that's one of the questions I will be out asking, or if they had been in the past, why are they not now? So that's something that I will be knocking on plenty of doors to find out.
Matter of fact, I had a conversation with someone on Saturday, and they used to be a member of the chamber, but they dropped out because of the insurance. They were looking for a better insurance
Better
rate.
insurance deal,
And
yeah.
it didn't turn out that way, so they just did something else. But I think, Milford's a wonderful town, and it's
It
good people,
is.
and you've met a lot of people here tonight. Come to town hall. Ricky can, maybe organize a little meeting for you to meet with the certain department heads, get to know people. And then, whatever you can do working with us. I think what happens a lot of times is that, as Bill, as chairman said, we get a letter every year at tax time. But, beyond that, there's no other communication, so,
Okay,
even if the chamber or the IDC, those groups working together, send us a letter every once in a while and say, hey, listen, we took a ride down Central Street and there's a light missing. Can you repair the light? As simple as that.
right.
And I think, with that, we could, go on from that point of view. But the main thing is get to know these people, town planner, the assessor, tax collector, the tax base, maybe meet with the people on Main Street, the people who are members and aren't members, and try to get them on board and ask them, are you happy? Is the town doing whatever they can for you when you ask? We try to be pro-business. I think we are pro-business. I just think sometimes, as Brian said, the other side has to pick it up too.
Right,
It
it's a
can't be a
two-way
one-way
street.
street here. It's got to be a
Right.
two-way street. And so, so I think if, we all try to do that and be positive, and you bring a tremendous wealth to the position. So hopefully, a year from now, we will have done a few things. And as long as we're making progress, and I think doing good things for everyone, and helping out businesses and helping out Main Street, I think everyone benefits with that.
I agree, I totally agree.
So good luck.
Thank you, thank you,
Thank you, Dean. Brian?
Welcome to Milford.
thank you.
So tell me, what do you envision the role of the chamber to be in the community?
A working partnership with the town on whatever level we can work out to benefit the entire town and the entire area, not just Milford. We do have 10 towns that we need to take care of. There's 2 of us full-time up there, so we will be out and about, and I really think that we can work very well together. With my background, I think I can bring another perspective that maybe hasn't happened before.
So if there's a particular issue that might confront the town, just hypothetically, say a casino wanted to move into the community.
Brian, is that an item of interest?
Yeah. How do you think the chamber would handle something like that?
I think we would have to listen to the members and really stay neutral, because I understand there's both sides to it. We'd also have to have a lot of communication, and I think we would be active in listening and doing what we could, and working with my board to see what direction they would want us to go in.
Okay. But what, I guess that the question I have, and let's, maybe pick another issue, I just tossed out, the possibility of mixed use on Main Street. What role do you see the chamber having on a particular issue like that, other than staying neutral because there's both sides of the issue? What would you,
Well,
that issue's on the table, okay? You're the director of the Milford Chamber of Commerce. How do you want to address that issue to help the community?
I would attend some meetings and find out what direction the community wanted to go to. I would talk to the business people and work with your departments to see how you're going to proceed. If you're asking me on a political side, I can't really answer because I really don't know what the town would want. So it would be a lot of investigation.
So do you see the chamber more as an advocacy group for business throughout the community, or as a informational resource for people?
I think I see it as both. I see it as a partnership for both, for the community as people as well as the business community. And I'm hoping to develop a very good partnership that way. I can't say right now, only been here for 2 days.
No, I know, but I understand that, but I mean,
But I
you know,
see it more as a
on a-
partnership.
I understand that, you've only been here a couple of days, but obviously, you've pursued this job and you've been successful, and that's great. So I would imagine you have some sort of vision as to what you think a chamber ought to do in a small community.
I believe it's a partnership amongst the entire community. And that's the road that right now we're trying to develop.
Okay. So would we maybe expect at some point, on any given issue, maybe sort of an informational forum where, different sides could present issues on a particular topic? Is that something that you would envision as part of the
Yes.
chamber work?
Yes, I would. Especially if it's something that's pertinent to the town and to the people and to the business community.
Because
I
to be
mean, I
honest with
see
you, I
that.
think a big criticism with, the chamber in this community, and I don't know if you've heard it or not, but, it's a big party. It's a social group, you have your after hours, and
Oh, okay.
you'll go and, have cocktails, and everybody has fun, and that, but if anything of consequence, you can't find the chamber anywhere.
Okay.
So
I
that.
had not heard that, so thank you for sharing that with me.
So that's, I mean, are you gonna be able to shed that image?
I believe so.
Yeah, okay,
Okay.
good. Well, we'll
I
look forward to it.
plan on it.
Yeah,
Okay, and I had not heard that, but thank you for sharing that with me. Some information that I needed to hear.
well, I mean, I'm not saying that that's the universal, but I know that's, at least, with some individuals, a perception of the organization.
Okay,
And anything of meaningful consequence, the chamber's not involved.
okay,
You know what I mean? So I think, with a new leader coming on board, with some political experience, and I'm not talking about taking issues, but I'm talking about getting involved in issues, and maybe being a forum to present information on a certain basis, on a certain level, that would interest business owners, landlords, that type of stuff.
Right.
I think the chamber could serve a very, very valuable service to the town, which quite frankly has not been done.
okay. All right, I will take that under advisement.
Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
Well, I just want to say, again, welcome. I think I'm encouraged by both your private and public sector experience. It's no surprise to me why they chose you. I don't know the other candidates, but I'm sure that you are far superior to those.
Thank you.
I look forward to working with you, and maybe unlike what might have happened in the past, I look forward to communicating with you as issues arise. I think I may have received 2 phone calls from the former chamber in 9 years. So to give you a sense of the type of interaction that's been limited,
Okay,
is being kind. So I look forward to you and your participation, and welcome.
thank you. I
Very welcome.
appreciate your time.
Good luck.
Thank you.
And
Good
you
luck.
will be hearing from me more. You might be sick of hearing from me.
Oh, that's all right.
So we'll go from maybe one extreme to another. Just give me a little bit of time to get my feet wet.
Sure,
Okay?
absolutely.
Thank you, and have
Good
a nice
luck.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And maybe going to the IDC that's coming up on, what, the 16th?
16th.
Is maybe
I
a
will,
good, a good place just to familiarize with yourself with the members, so you can
I can-
communicate?
Did write that date down when
Good.
I heard it earlier.
Good.
I was gonna contact you for a time.
We can reach out and talk, yes.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good luck.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the town administrator's report. Rick?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, all budgets are again under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen on target. Finance Committee is going to be meeting to begin discussion of the upcoming budget. I do want to commend Highway Surveyor Scott Christofouli, all his staff and workers, Police Chief O'Laughlin, Fire Chief Toohey, and the town custodial staff for their excellent job in handling the snow removal from the storm this past January 3rd and 4th. I know they worked long hours, and I believe they did an excellent job. I heard a lot of compliments, and I just want to give them just a public shout-out. One issue I wanted to bring up to the board is that we are having some issues with the heating units at Town Hall. Two of them have had to been replaced. One was mine.
Not in this room.
Not in this room, no. But the units are well over 20 years old, so I'm in the process of confirming both the age, condition of the remaining units, and I'm going to look into seeing what the cost would be to replace these units. It probably would be an item that we could place on the capital project list, rather than trying to replace them piecemeal as to what we're doing now. But a second one has now since been an issue, so we'll come back to the board with more information on that. And that's all I have
All right.
at this point. Thank you.
All right. Any comments, questions for the town administrator?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Brian?
No.
Okay. Next, we have old business. Town administrator has provided us a proposed schedule for timeline for appointment of the town treasurer. Hopefully, the board members have had an opportunity to review it. Rick, you want to
Yes,
give the high points?
Yes, I have prepared a timeline. We will advertise in the Beacon. We'll advertise hopefully in the Milford Daily News and the Milford Town Crier. We'll also put it on the MMA website as well as our own website. The application packet will include a letter of intent, up-to-date comprehensive resume, and obviously any evidence of any educational coursework. I am recommending that both myself and town council review the applications and conduct preliminary interviews if they are required. We would like then to submit a list of names of at least 3, or possibly more if the board requires, qualified candidates for the board to interview to make a final selection. I have put on the timeline a suggested timeline. If the board sees fit to go with that timeline, that's fine. It could be made a little tighter, if that's what the board would like. But on my timeline, we would appoint a successful candidate by April 7th of this year. Obviously, if the board, in reviewing all of the applications, would like to add a name to be interviewed, the board could so choose to do that also. I have included in the packet the updated job description, which I believe we presented to you at the last selectmen's meeting, to see if there were any changes, corrections, additions that the board might want to consider there. But I've also included the proposed salary range, so I've asked the board to look at that and make sure that that is with what they would like to do, and the proposed publications for the Beacon and the newspapers. So again, hopefully the board has had an opportunity to look at the enclosed packet. I would welcome any suggestions, both to the job description and/or the timeline and process.
And the proposed salary you're proposing is $83,000 to $95,000?
That is correct.
Okay. And again, bottom line is that you're looking to establish a timeline, which I would say is fairly aggressive, and still allowing for the right type of review process, but April 7th, target date for appointment.
A final appointment, and then obviously contract negotiation.
Because there's a lot to be done in between then and now.
Yes, I think it can be done, though.
Okay. I'll go to the board members. I just had one question.
Sure.
Is there a reason why we're not looking for a master's degree? And that was part of the feedback I gave you the last time, and this is still, the job description is still seeking
It is
somebody
the
with a
same job
bachelor's.
description. I did not add any of the educational requirements. The board was making recommendations. I think
What happened with that?
The only consideration on that is we were looking to keep it a broad range. We did not want to eliminate people that might otherwise be qualified, but for having that master's degree.
Do you think,
That was the consideration.
is there
You
is there
could
a
get,
concern that having an MBA might limit the pool of candidates? Or so limited that we wouldn't get qualified candidates?
I don't think that's the concern. The concern might be, the other concern would be there may be candidates out there who have a wealth of experience, ex-town treasurers, consistent town treasurers now, and we may eliminate them because they do not have the master's degree. So I think that would be more of the concern that I personally would have.
Maybe we
Again,
can structure it that
you could.
they could have a master's or in lieu of a master's.
Comparable.
No, in lieu of a, I want it to be something very specific. If
It's
we're
in-
worried about that,
Yep.
specific experience as a town treasurer in lieu of a master's.
Again, I'm open to suggestions from the board. You could put in language that specific degree is preferred. That might be another way.
No, I'd want to be specific.
Okay. Again, I'm just,
Just a suggestion.
yep.
It's actually more than a suggestion. I'd like to see it incorporated if the board members have no particular concerns. It's our appointment, so, in fairness to Rick, he's looking for feedback. I'll go to the other board members, and that can be one of the topics that we can discuss. Dino?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, Rick, on the first page, bachelor's degree, and I've seen a few advertisements in the past few months, and I think we should stress finance. Bachelor's degree in finance and/or public administration. What I'm looking for is this position has evolved. I think that it's an integral part of the financial team, and the financial team being yourself, the tax collector, the financial analyst, the treasurer, maybe a she or a he, and the chairman of the finance committee. So I'm looking for the most qualified person, and hopefully the person will have a bachelor's degree, further degrees in finance, and if the person doesn't have that combination, then, 20, 25 years of experience working as a treasurer. So it's important that we try to get the most qualified person. We've done very well with, with the two former treasurers were very qualified, they had degrees. We hired a town accountant, turned out to be a fantastic individual, very qualified. And so, that's, I think it's very, very important. The reason why the town of Milford is in good shape, a lot of reasons, but I think the major reason is because of the financial team meeting monthly, working out issues, working out financial situations, the bonding that allows us to do all the projects that we do within the operating budget. And so I think that has to continue. And the other item is on the physical demands. I'd just like you to add reasonable accommodations upon request may be made to enable individuals, so upon request.
All right, thank you, Dean. Brian?
I'd like to talk about the timeline a little bit. You've got until March 7th for people to submit applications. To me, I think that's kind of a long time.
Okay.
Where we're going to advertisement on January 24th. So I would propose that we push that up to February 28th.
Okay, could back it up 1 week.
Yeah.
Yep.
Back it up a week. And just the remaining steps follow accordingly with a week.
So back all of those up 1 week.
I think so.
So you'd be looking at an appointment on
I think a month and a half.
March 31st.
That's too much, I think.
I think a month and a half
It's
to
6
submit
weeks
applications
today.
is a little bit too much.
Yep.
I don't think you need all of that. Is that February 28th? Is that a Friday?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would make
Top
it,
of my head, yes.
End on the 28th, and then you can,
Sure.
back everything up.
Yeah, it won't affect the advertising, so that certainly can be done.
Right. And it'll bring, I think, a final candidate sometime around the end of March.
Correct.
So that's okay. In terms of the job description, I'm fine with it as written. I mean, I've seen enough of these things to know that I want to give us maximum flexibility to consider candidates of all areas of experience and education. The more specific we make it, the more limiting we make it. Now, this isn't to say that, we can't consider applicants with masters, along with anyone else who might apply. So I'm satisfied with the job description as written. There was one area, Dean, you had mentioned, what was the second one that you talked about?
Yeah, on the physical demands.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
okay.
Reasonable accommodations upon request.
Of course, yeah,
No,
absolutely.
I will add that, and
Yeah,
that should
absolutely.
be in there.
That's the new terminology now.
Yes,
Yeah, that's fine,
okay.
that's fine.
Okay,
So-
so I had a request to make it masters or having had prior town treasurer experience in lieu of a master's.
Okay.
I'd go
You see-
along with that, yeah, I'd go along with that, as long as we have a little, some flexibility, so in case a person,
Absolutely.
when a
was it-
master's applies, has 30 years' experience. you
Exactly.
know, right.
Then you allow that to
Right.
be in lieu of.
Yeah,
Okay, so master's degree or,
or equivalent, direct,
consensus for that?
direct experience.
okay. I'm sorry.
Town treasurer experience.
Right.
If that's what you're worried about, then I'd address that. That if they've been a previous town treasurer, then, and have a bachelor's, then have on-the-job experience.
Okay, so job experience, okay.
And then, Mr. Chairman, as I think we've all said, if, when you review the applications, you have the flexibility. If you see a person with the right qualifications, and they may be lacking something, you could bring it to us,
Okay, okay, we can add that in.
Right.
Today, in this field, in the area of finance, an MBA is not limiting. I'm just gonna tell you that. So,
And the timeline, yeah, you definitely have to speed up the
We'll
time.
move up the timeline
The
1 week.
timeline, yeah.
so,
So we're agreed on that.
yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Anything?
Well, I think we need a motion on the job description.
Okay, so the proposal as it stands is to move up the timeline by 1 week. We'll make that part of the motion, and modify the requirements to master's degree or in lieu of a master's degree, specific town treasurer experience, having
Okay.
been a prior town treasurer. So we don't want to rule that out, to your concern.
Okay.
All right?
I think we need to have two motions then.
All right, so let's have two motions. Motion to move up the timeline by 1 week, asking for applications to be in by the 28th of
Motion.
February.
I'll second that.
Okay.
I'll also vote in favor. That's unanimous. Now,
Okay.
a motion to have a master's degree, or in lieu of a master's degree, town treasurer experience.
Okay. And we'll add in the language about reasonable accommodations, so as to-
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, as well.
Okay.
Reasonable
If that could be-
accommodations,
Okay.
upon request. Dean?
Motion.
Okay. Is there a second?
No.
I'll second it. It's 2-1. Brian opposed.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda, I'm sorry, before I do that, is there any other old business that the members would like to bring up, Dean?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Brian?
No.
Okay. Under new business, we have a traffic aid request that is from a resident, and Vonnie Reese and the chief have provided input to this board recommending installation of a not-a-through street, the intersection of Cedarview Circle and Route 85. Again, the police chief and Vonnie both agree that this is reasonable.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
If I could add one thing to that,
Please.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, please.
The one issue that we discussed today a little bit was the Cedarview Circle is a private way, so possibly the cost might, should be borne by the condo association that would benefit. That was brought up in discussion just last minute today, so I just throw that out there for the board's consideration.
Yeah, just a concern, Rick, we have a lot of folks that are, tax-paying residents
Yep.
in the PRCs or PRDs, and, for the cost of a sign, I just don't want to appear petty in the
Okay.
process. Just some feedback, but I'll
Yep.
bow to the views of the board.
Just,
What's a sign cost anyway?
yeah, probably looking at probably
$100.
$50 and $100, depending on whether they got to do a pole or just put it on an existing sign.
Well, the question is, where's it gonna go?
It actually is going to go on the sign that is on town property.
Okay,
So
if
that
it's
issue
on-
there, if it goes there, then I think we should bear it. If they,
I don't
if
have a
not,
problem with
then I think the condo association would bear it if it's gonna go on their property.
Right,
But
right,
Vonnie
right.
did check, and the sign would go on the sign that exists on town property now.
Yeah, because I think we, have to keep in mind, while, seemingly insignificant, there are other condo associations in town which
That
are
was-
larger, private roads, and we have had issues in the past where they've looked for town amenities and town services. So I think we do have to be mindful of that distinction.
Okay.
So I think if we can put it on town land, that would be the way to handle it.
Okay.
Okay.
Motion? Did we finish?
Motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I.
Motion, is there a second?
Thank
I'll
you.
also vote in favor, that's unanimous. Next, we have a request from Jen Walsh hold their annual road race, benefit the Milford Special Olympics on Saturday, September 20th. The only thing I request is, there's not an application here, and normally we'd see application to obstruct or something. I don't want to be picky with this, but I just want to make sure that, as consistent with other benefits, that the chief provides feedback to make sure that what we're doing is safe and that all the runners are safe, and I know Jen would want that as well.
Sure, I'll take care of that.
Motion.
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor, that's unanimous. They do great work, and Jen does great work, so always happy to support that. Next, under new business, we have application for a one-day license, Maspinock Rod and Gun Club. Tony Mambuka is making the request for January 18th, 2014, from 12 p.m. to 12 a.m. for a
Motion.
birthday party.
Seconded.
I'll also vote in favor, that's unanimous. Is there other new business that the members would like to bring up, Dean?
Just excuse me again,
Oh, go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman, we had one on.
I'm sorry, you're
Just
right.
the gift.
It was off the agenda,
Just
you're right.
That needs a vote. Thank
So
you.
there's a gift from the Birch Hill Trust Association, gift of $100. It says general here, the purpose, but the purpose is general to be directed towards the fire department.
Correct.
Okay?
Motion that we accept, yeah.
There's a motion
Seconded.
to accept, there's a second, and I also vote in favor, that's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, any new business?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, just a couple of items.
Go ahead.
One is the acoustics at Town Hall. I think the acoustics at Town Hall, as, many people have talked to us, is not good. It's not conducive to hearing, especially people who are getting a little bit older, or especially for people who are hearing impaired. There are a few things that can be done at not a very significant cost, so that people will be able to hear when we articulate articles or speak at town meetings. So I'd like to be able to work with the town administrator, town engineer, and Mike Nicholson to research some alternatives and then bring some recommendations back to this board.
Yeah, as of late, I would tell you that not only are the people in the back having difficulty hearing, our town meeting members don't have to be gifted public speakers, always projecting and always being able to speak in front of the microphone. We ought to be able to reasonably accommodate the town meeting members and the various people who want to approach town meeting to speak and make sure they're heard. The other thing is, if you would, Dean, in researching the speaker system, if we could look at the microphone and podium setup, because it's currently, it needs some improvement.
Okay.
As it relates to height and.
You got that, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And the other thing, Brian, Bill, is, I know I've brought this up before, we're close to a $90 million budget now. We're a mid-sized company. And I think the HR function in town is rather piecemeal. I know in the treasurer's office, we do the insurance, somebody else may do something else. But I think with the size of the town of Milford and the number of employees, I'd like to have the town administrator look at something where it's centralized. I think if we had an HR person, I'm not talking about a department spending a lot of money, but one person who has the expertise, does that on a daily basis. And if you look at the topics, we're talking about orientation, compensation, hiring process. We hire people, and a lot of times we don't, they may not be asking the right questions, what's allowed. Safety, wellness, benefits, ADA, communication, conflict of interest, appraisals, how does someone evaluate someone? So It's a workplace culture. We want a sound working environment. And the more training we have, the better focus and knowledge that we have for our employees, or enable them to be, I think we'll be more effective in providing services to the general public. So I think that, if you look at some of the communities in the area, some of the I think we're progressive, but in some areas we're still parochial, and I think, we can expand this and make it a situation where we can delve into those areas. And I think, as time goes by, over the past 3 or 4 years, there have been situations, and we've said, well, if we had one person who dealt with this on a daily basis, who sets up training, we go to training all the time. There should be training 2 or 3 times a year for department heads, employees to go to, because I think as we do that, we become informed, we become knowledgeable, and I think we make less mistakes, and I think we make for a better workforce. So I'd just like to ask if we can have the town administrator look into that, bring back what we presently have, what we could probably do going forward, and, it may be a good idea, it may not, but I think if you look at some of the towns in the area that have an HR person, I think it's, it's well-suited. I think it prevents a lot of situations, and I just think it's good.
I would agree with you,
We're close
Dean.
to $90 million now.
I would agree with you, and we've found various situations where, whether it be town employees, special town employees, that I would tell you that I've questioned how we inbound those folks and to what level and what extent we provide orientation to make sure they're clear about how we operate. The laws are changing constantly. I'd like to see annual training program that talks about conflict of interest. We deal with a great many documents that have personal information. And so we ought to make sure that people are clear about what the expectations are and the right ways to protect that information that's private. Whether it be health information, social security numbers, a whole host of things that I see on documents that I find that we're somewhat casual about at times. So that's just more to add to it, but I agree with you, Dean. Brian, I'm sorry, are you done?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Brian?
So what are we looking to do? Are we looking to create a human resource department within town government?
No, Brian, I think what I've asked for is for Ricky to look at what we have presently. Who's doing what functions? Are the functions being handled by 3 people, 2 people, 1 person? See what's lacking. Maybe check with a couple of the other towns in the area that have, a person who handles HR, and see if there would be advantages for us to maybe move in that type of situation.
Or consolidate them to
At the
have one
present time, I don't
resource
know.
and professional.
At the present time, I
Doesn't-
don't know what we really have. I think it's decentralized, I think it's piecemeal, but maybe going forward, I don't think we have to spend a lot of money. We may have the pieces in place already, but let's, put it on paper, see what we have, and see if there's anything lacking.
I view it as similar to the request of technology, where we've got a patchwork, a quilt, if you will, of various activities, consultants, and to see, if we can apply the same amount of resources, or even maybe less resources, and still have it more efficient and more consolidated, more effective. That's what I heard.
Well, I have no problem in getting an assessment of what's being done today. I guess the question is, what exactly are we assessing?
Well, I think we're assessing for example, every time I come into town hall, people ask me about reasonable accommodation. I don't think there's much knowledge in this building about reasonable accommodation. I think assistive technology to help people who may have a certain disability, conflict of interest, not just questions. I think, we have a person in the, Kelly does a great job with the insurance and all that, but I think all the other, when someone is hired, is there an orientation? When people are hired in my agency, they go to a central location, they meet with a person, they go over insurance, they go over ADA issues, they go over training, what's expected, they receive training on a regular basis, those types of things. And I don't think as a, major community of 30,000, I don't think we're doing that. And I think what happens is, I think a lot of the employees that we have, and even our department heads, they're not really up to date with the with the programs, what's allowed in all those areas that I mentioned. And I think, they have employees underneath them that they supervise, and that these issues come up. And then I think they have to look towards Ricky, they have to look towards someone else, and there really should be someone. And I think, maybe we might be able to do it on a part-time basis. But there should be, I think there's a lot of things missing. I think there's a lot of things lacking that could make our employees better, well-informed in all those areas. And plus, I think the end result would be, I think they better serve the public. So that's what I'm looking for. So an assessment to see what we presently have, and then looking at some of the other towns and other areas that we're lacking as far as training and everything else, and then go from there. Of course, it would be our decision what happens. But I just think that, with the budget approaching $90 million, I think this is one function where
over 600
we really,
employees.
really need something. That's my opinion from what I've known at Town Hall over many years.
Well, I mean, I guess, as long as, Rick has a clear understanding of what's to be evaluated.
Right. I think he does at this
Because,
point. Yeah.
you're talking about, ADA compliance,
Yeah.
which is separate from health benefits, which is, separate from requirements
But-
of.
Sexual harassment training,
Yeah,
conflict of
but
interest
everything is
training.
under HR though, where those programs come in are at the HR department, Brian, so, like, large companies have it, small companies have it, and I know in our own work, we're always going to training to be updated on different things, and, a town meeting, the last time I think we had a training was probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it was on, diversity, I think. But diversity changes, the context change, and all those, legal
The laws
requirements. So I just think it's something going forward that I think is very much needed in this building, but I may be wrong, so that's why I let Ricky go off, do the assessment. If he has any more questions, he can ask me, whatever. But I think if he calls Franklin, some of the other communities, I think you'll get a good grasp of what we should be doing, and if we're not doing it, the recommendations to go
So
forward, and then it's up to us.
are we talking about just town hall proper? Are we
Well, I think it
talking
would
about
be-
the police
I
department?
think
I
it
mean,
could-
because you mentioned 90 million, so that's the school
It
department
could
as
be,
well.
well, I think the
I
school
mean, are we-
department probably has something, but it could be police and fire along with us, sure.
But we administer a great deal from central office, a lot of the typical HR functions for even the school department. So, for example, there's payroll, there's health benefits, there's a host of things that would still probably fall under that umbrella as well.
I just think it's something
Well,
important, we can look at it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
So it's
it's
not a hard line.
Well, it's a type of thing, you have to be careful, because once you go down that road, then all of a sudden, you've committed yourself to a larger government. An entire HR department, department head, assistant, clerical, so, I mean, that's why I think, we need to be careful as to the questions we ask, and what we want to have assessed and what we want to have evaluated.
Are you questioning the need, or are you questioning, I'm trying to figure out what your
I'm trying to
concern is.
get my arms around what exactly, we're looking to have examined with the intent to wind up where, I guess is what I'm trying
Well,
to get to.
I don't wanna
We've tossed out a lot of things here, let's look at this, let's look at that. let's
Yeah.
look- Well, okay, so we're gonna look at all this stuff, I guess. I mean, are we gonna be committing ourselves to, more government?
Well, we haven't,
Well, the other
No.
thing is to pretend that there's not an issue and not do anything.
I mean, I'm not gonna do something, I'm not gonna
Yeah.
advocate for something that costs a lot of money.
Right.
I'm just saying that right now, I think that the areas that I touched upon, I think are lacking. I don't think we have one person that is very skilled, knowledgeable in those areas. So what happens is, just because someone becomes an elected official or someone is appointed, doesn't mean they have all the necessary tools and knowledge necessary to run a department. And I think as an organization, I think it proves us well to look into this, because I know before Lewis left, he was looking at it, and he was coming up with some information, so I've talked to Rick about it a couple of times. But I just don't like the piecemeal approach, because, there are a lot of important things that have to be done. There are a lot of important trainings that should be set up on a regular basis for our employees, and I don't think we have that at this time. So if we feel that's a good way to do business, then fine, but otherwise, I think we should look at it, have Rick do an analysis. I'm not saying you have to come back in 2 or 3 weeks. See what you can come up with, see what some of the other towns have, see what we have. Like I said, I think right now, we have Kelly who does the insurance. I think there's a person in the town accountant's office that does something else. But it's piecemeal, and maybe it should be one person. Maybe there are things that are not being covered that are very, very important as far as our employees. And they should have that knowledge, because, we work for the public. You can get in trouble if you don't do things right a lot of times. So at least if you have the knowledge, you can cut back on that. And I think that, once Rick starts on this, I think he'll be able to give us some information. He can give us maybe a progress summary in a month or so, and then see what happens with that. But I don't think we need a department. I just think we need one person. I think it should be centralized so that it's not, 3 different people giving information. That's all.
Well, I mean, if you're comfortable, Rick, with that, degree of direction, then good luck.
Well, I don't think it can be any clearer. I think that, I'm sure that Ricky, in a span of 8 or 9 months, has already seen things where, we're lacking in certain areas. And I think it's important that our people are trained. I mean, we don't have much training in this building, and we should have training. I'm not saying training every month, but a couple of times a year, once a year, there should be training on different aspects. When someone is hired, what are the benefits? What are the deferred compensation? Anything that a person may have. And if we have the right individual, if we do it right, then I think, our employees, it would be like a company, and then most good companies have an HR person helping, giving out information. And I think it could only make the town better, that's all. If it's not, then we don't do it.
Yeah, just a piece of information, Brian, I'd like to add in here. I'm not sure we could go to one person and ask the extent to which we're complying with state and federal laws with respect to the training we're supposed to be providing at a basic and at a minimum. I'm not sure we have a great grasp on that. We've talked about how we provide orientation for new employees, special town employees, letting them know conflict of interest, those types of things. We had issues with finance on the youth center where I think people weren't clear about the obligations in dealing with public funds, proper meeting record attendance, and those types of things. And there's no reason why, when people volunteer to be part of these boards or even full-time employees, that they should come in knowing everything and knowing how the obligations of municipal employees, as an example. I don't know how fast, when we bring somebody on board and there isn't training for 9 more months, as it relates to conflict of interest, which is a state program, but, meeting records, public meeting, public notice, those types of things, where they're supposed to get this information other than tribal knowledge and hallway conversations, so.
I thought we addressed that when we put together the handbook, that, when someone gets appointed to a committee or a commission, addresses all of those things. But I mean, I don't wanna, beat a dead horse.
No, I understand.
The only thing I'm saying is, I think we're, making some assumptions here that, may or may not be accurate, and we're kind of winging it a little bit, but, as long as, Rick has an idea as to what you're looking for, then, go to town.
Okay.
No, I think, we're not winging it. The information that I've retrieved is, I think it's lacking, but I'm not sure. I know it's piecemeal, and just asking Rick to do the evaluation, the assessment, bring it back. And I know there's a MMA conference coming up in a few weeks, and I think one of the few topics is on HR and all that stuff. So let's just see what happens, and I'm sure the information that Ricky brings back to us will be very interesting.
Rick has indicated he seems clear, so if you're comfortable, and you can
I
have follow-up
think
discussion.
I can follow through.
I'm gonna move on to the next agenda item. I'm sorry, new business. Brian, any new business?
No.
Okay. Next, we have correspondence from the town planner as it relates to Consigli property, as it relates to specifically a question that came up at our last meeting for conservation restriction. Larry, you provided a great deal of information. If you could go over it with us and sum it up. I'd appreciate it. It was pretty clear, so I appreciate what you talked about in terms of the rating system and constraints. Why don't you go over that with us?
Well, when we started looking at the various parcels involved, to focus just on the Consigli property, obviously, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It has, it's in basically a 200-acre cluster of several other town-owned parcels, some of which, as you can see on the matrix, are already under Concom jurisdiction. Well, 3 of them are. 3 of the 8 total parcels are already under Concom jurisdiction. The rest of them are merely town-owned. As I had alluded to in the memo, we had done some mapping back in 2007 to look at all the open space parcels that the town owns. I pulled out the adjacent parcels to the Consigli piece so we could see that specific parcel in context. As some of the maps show, it's kind of bordered by Louisa Lake on the west and the town forest and some of the other parcels to the northeast, going all the way over to exit 20. But over the years, we've accumulated those parcels. Town forest was the largest one, but there are several other parcels adjacent to that as well. So in responding to Brian's suggestion, it only seemed to me to make sense to look at the broader picture,
Sure.
to look at that parcel in context, even including the small house lot that we had acquired recently and at 26 Dilla Street and had demolished. So my recommendation, as you can see in the memo, is to not only put all of the parcels under Concom jurisdiction, but to investigate adopting a conservation restriction that would run to the trustees of reservations to afford permanent protection to those 200 and some acres going forward. What we have yet to confirm from the trustees is what their fee structure is for doing that and whether there's a difference comparing municipalities that already own the land that wish to do a conservation restriction versus, say, Eastland Partners that put a conservation restriction on the open space in Walden Woods as they deeded it to the town under Concom jurisdiction. So if it's the same fee structure, we want to know what that is. If it's hopefully a lesser fee structure, we want to find that out. And if there is a fee, even to a municipality, whether or not a state agency like DCR might have some funding program, matching program to help us reduce the cost. But whether...
Even that you can't guarantee, right? It's
Right.
only good for the budget year. So here's what I'd ask. Why don't we investigate, because that's one of the things that came to mind. Because I agree with you, that if we're talking about transferring the jurisdiction of the 5 remaining parcels to make sure that it's bundled with the overall 200 acres, that would make sense. And the only other thing I'd add is finding out the pros and cons of having a conservation restriction with the Concom as the trustees and its continuum, or this land, I'm sorry, what's the?
Trustees of reservation.
Trustees of reservation doing it for us. And let's see what the pros and cons are, and fees, for that matter.
Yeah, I think town council had begun to address at least some of the differences between the two. But, yeah, to the extent that we take that a step further, we can do that.
Okay, and look for, I think what we're talking about, and we'll let the other board members talk to it, I think we're all talking about permanent restriction to prevent
Correct.
development. There were commitments made that get lost over the years, and as boards change and membership changes, that commitments, for example, that would be passive recreation.
Yep.
And that we wouldn't substantially change that land, that there wouldn't be ball fields on it. And who knows what future boards may decide, but we're talking about permanent restrictions. At least that's how I understood it. Dean?
Yeah, no, when Brian brought that up a couple of weeks ago, I think that was an excellent idea. When this came up several years ago, when I presented the article, we had to do it twice. We lost the first time, then we went back and we were able to get it. And when the discussion was around passive recreation, letting it stay for a while, and then protecting it, and so I think it falls in line with that. And, we have to be careful because just as of about a year ago, the school building committee did look at that piece of property, but possibly for a school building, but because of traffic situation, the way it was situated, it wasn't proper, but they did look at it, and so I was a little worried, because we have to protect that land, that whatever way that we should protect that land. And the other thing, Larry, that the board is trying to also do is expand the parking lot, so we just have to make sure we put that in. But I think it was a, excellent idea that was brought up by Brian. We have to, get whatever answers we need, but whatever the best way is to protect that land forever, I think we have to do that.
Yeah,
I think it's a follow-up to an existing commitment that's already
Right.
been stated,
Yeah.
right? It's just,
Well, to that last point that Dino just made, the language of the conservation restriction itself can address some of those particular kinds of issues, like expanding an existing parking lot, or maybe even creating new parking, but tie it to, in that instance, obviously, the Louisa
Trail.
Lake Recreation Facility or the recreational trail, so that it's clear what it's for, that it's not just willy-nilly building parking lots.
Right.
So we can cover that in the language of a restriction, but I think, back to both of your original points, there are three tiers of protection, or at least perceived protection, and town ownership is probably at the bottom of the list. The next higher would be if land is put under the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission, because at least then the use of the property has to go through that extra layer of review, so it has that additional protection, but that doesn't mean that it's permanently protected. So the only real permanent protection is a conservation restriction, which is why I suggested that running to the separate agency, to the trustees. Trustees were created by the state legislature. It exists as a nonprofit, and having the restriction run to that other entity then guarantees the citizens of the town that the town forest, being the town forest, really would mean something. Right now,
it's a name.
it's a name, yeah.
Okay.
It's a town forest because there are a lot of trees there, not because of any legal restrictions. So I think the direction we're all kind of headed in gets us to that point of permanent protection.
Okay.
Sharon, I also want to say, Larry, you did a great job on that. I mean, the background information and all that, the detail, I think it's a very good job. Much appreciated.
Right?
Yeah, no, I agree with what Dean said. Thank you, Larry. You did a great job on the memo, and you brought to light more of the land than just I was talking about, and you forced me to go back in my files and get out the open space plan of 2002.
So that's where that extra copy
And
went.
there it is, so, and this is very interesting,
Yep.
actually, as I looked at the surveys to individuals going back 10-plus years now, boy, not a lot of the complaints have changed. People are talking about traffic and all that sort of thing, so, yeah, I think your analysis as to the different levels of protection are correct, and that's why I would be an advocate for having a conservation restriction to the trustees' reservation, because in all practicality, that's going to guarantee that land remains virgin, open space in perpetuity. Boards of selectmen can change, and boards of selectmen can change conservation commission appointments, and conservation commission members can change. But, if that restriction easement is on there, that land will be preserved, for our children, our grandchildren, and so forth. And, I mean, let's face it, the bottom line is, once land is developed, it's very rarely, if ever, undeveloped again.
Exactly.
The development might change, but it's not gonna go back to woods. And this area here, the Dilla Street property, going into the town forest, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. And it's like you're not in Milford. It's like you're up in the woods of New Hampshire or something. And it's amazing because of the proximity to the roadways, but there it is. So I mean, I really think that we owe it to future generations to make sure that that stays protected, because, you know, the crawl of development just goes everywhere. So, I would also, you know, like to have you, as I know you have, you know, bring into the fold Bob Buckley, because I know Bob's been a big advocate of this type of work, and then also because the trail feathers through there, and I know Reno, and I've talked to him about this, he's very, very interested in it. So I think, you know, you're on the right track in terms of getting back to us what the potential costs might be from the trustees' reservation. You know, to me, I think I've pretty much decided how I would like to, you know, see that land dedicated. And then you know, my impression on the Louisa Lake parking expansion was that, you know, we would basically carve out a parcel to retain as expanded parking. But I guess you've indicated that it's possible, I guess, to have that conservation easement restriction, but also language within it that might allow it. So I suppose.
Allowable use to support the passive
Because
recreation.
I would suggest you put the Louisa Lake parcel under the restriction as well. And we just have the appropriate language to address
And
those
that's fine,
variety of
and that's
uses.
fine, you know,
Yeah.
to me, 6 here, half a dozen there. I
Yeah.
mean, I pulled out Mike Santura's, you know, he gave us a cost estimate of about $171,000 a couple of years ago to, you know, do this expanded
Yep.
parking lot. I mean, I think that's a need, and I know you were thinking about, reserving some of the land if we ever wanted to widen Dilla Street at a certain point to try to reduce that curve. I mean, I think all of that can be done, because the guts of this is really not on Dilla Street, it's
Correct.
it's back and beyond, and that's what I think we're looking to preserve. So I want to thank you for, you know, taking, you know, the thought and bringing it into the bigger picture so that we're looking at all of this conservation land.
Absolutely. Good job, Larry.
Okay, thank you, and maybe we get a report back in a couple of weeks with a recommendation and why and some of the costs associated with it. I think what you've got is a consensus here. We want to protect that land. We want to hold it in perpetuity. It is the right thing to do, to look at, should we ever want to straighten a little bit of that curve on Dilla Street.
Yep.
I know the chief has talked to me a few times about not doing that, because that curve acts as a traffic calming device for speeding. So,
Probably.
right.
Well,
So
Yeah. you
there are pros and cons, but in any event, reserving it would seem to make sense, because that's aside from passive recreation, so
Exactly.
we want to have an easement there.
The closest thing we could get to so far in terms of costs were just the comparison of what it appears that the Walden Woods developer paid to the trustees, and I believe it was a total of $7,000
Okay.
over the first 2 years. They paid $35 or $36 a year to get to $7,000 or thereabouts, and that was their required contribution to get the trustees to accept the land. But
Well, if we
again,
talk
I
about
don't
it
know
for
if
too
that's-
much longer, we'll have spent the 7,000, so
Yeah.
keep moving,
Yeah.
keep the progress, and again, consistent with the other board members, thank you for the completeness of your summary. And the only other thing I'd add is, you know, when we're doing these types of things, it's I think it's helpful to also say that, you know, this is consistent with the master plan that we have.
Yes.
So, and I'd like to see more of that when we talk about some of these things, to talk about the continuity between that master plan and our activity, so that if nothing else, we don't lose the opportunity to link what is a long-term strategy that took a long time to develop, and we're following up on it. We're not just following up on town meeting commitment to the Consigli property, but to the development of land. I'm sorry, to the preservation of land. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Good job, Larry.
Good job. You can go home now.
I think that takes care of the correspondence on the agenda. Is there other correspondence that board members would like to bring up? Brian?
No.
Okay, we had already moved up the Department of Housing Community Development grant feedback and assessment to align it. Scott Crisafulli has provided us with a complete roads list of the things consistent, just as a follow-up from Dino's question last week. Comcast prices are going up again. Seems like every now and then we get a memo from them telling us those. And Vonnie Reese provided us a monthly progress report, actually provided to Rick, but we were CC'd on it, letting us know the types of things she's been working on and where that time has been utilized. So, good correspondence. There isn't an executive session tonight, so there's no reason to look at going into executive session. So, take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Seconded.
I'd also vote in favor. That's unanimous.